Hey, this is Coach Snow with CrossFit Iron Haven. I want to take this time to go over picking the right shoe to use for all of the things that we do here at the gym. Often we have a lot of people come in with running shoes or shoes that have a lot more of a squishier sole to them that are really great for providing stability and cushioning and shock absorption as you are running. However, that type of shoe is probably not the most ideal when you're trying to do lifting, such as deadlifting with the bar or trying to get into the bottom of a back squat, because you want to be able to feel the floor more effectively with your foot and be able to apply pressure without it wobbling around. Especially with lifting weights, your foot is the only thing connecting you between the ground, and so having proper footwear is going to be ideal in order to make sure that you're going to be very balanced. You're also going to be safe and you're going to be moving in the best way that you can. So there are a few different types of shoes. There are typical CrossFit shoes, which tend to have a much more sturdier heel base to them, not very squishy, something that's going to be able to grip the floor and not have a lot of wobble. So usually often CrossFit shoes have a pretty wide base where there's not a lot of roundedness to them. And because of this, it doesn't allow for a lot of side to side variation. You can kind of shift your weight side to side a bit more, and you're going to find more stability. This is going to be very helpful when you're in the bottom of a squat to have that lateral stability, also to be able to help you get that depth a bit more. Now, there are also very minimalist shoes. When I started CrossFit, the minimal shoe was all the rage, because running in minimal shoes gets you a lot more of that barefoot feel connected to the ground. It also forces you to strike with your mid or forefoot a lot more than a heel strike. Minimal shoes, I would just be a little cautious. In some minimal shoes have a very rounded heel, so the stability factor may not necessarily be there. This is the 0360 shoe, which is the cross training shoe or CrossFit shoe that they have for this brand, and this one in particular tends to have a bit of a wider base, which allows for that lateral stability. But again, some other barefoot shoes, some of the Innovate shoes or other ones out there might just be more rounded in terms of their heel. They'll give you a really good feel to the ground when you're doing things like deadlifts, but for something like squats, you might find that it might take an adjustment period to find that balance. Most CrossFit shoes are typically pretty dense in terms of the material used for the sole. You can do quite a bit of running in them, but I wouldn't go super long distance, maybe 400 meters at a time. At least for me, when I try running in CrossFit shoes, I find that they're very blocky and my feet tend to cramp a bit, so I usually typically go with a hybrid of more minimalist, flexible shoe when I do CrossFit and running. One of the other unique features of a CrossFit shoe is the rope climb technology. So often a shoe that is a CrossFit shoe will have a much more sturdy rubber underneath the sole, and perhaps even a little bit more rubber coming on the edges or the sides of the sole here, and that's to allow for a more secure grip when you're doing rope climbs, because often we wrap our feet on or around the rope, and if the sole is really spongy or the material isn't really dense, then the rope can definitely chew up the bottom of the shoe. So often the shoes that are for cross training or for CrossFit, the rubber is just a little bit stiffer so that it grips the rope a lot better and it's not going to get eaten up by the rope. So there are a bunch of different brands of CrossFit shoes. I don't have all of them here, but I have some of the ones that our members do use. One of the first brands that came out with a CrossFit shoe was the Reebok Nano, and this is one of their older styles, the 2.0, which was really popular, and they've actually revived this one. There's also the this is actually the newer, one of the newer Nanos. Innovate also makes a really good shoe as well. They have a couple different styles. We have a discount code if you would like to use that for getting a pair of Innovates for 15% off. But this is also a really great brand. They have very minimalist ones, and then they also have ones with a little bit of a higher heel to them. The elevated heel does give you a bit of support when you're going into the bottom of a squat if you're missing ankle mobility. Other brands that are really good as well, these are Nobles. There are also many other brands as well, such as Nike Metcons, Strike Movement, Haze Trainers, Rad Shoes. TYR is a brand that just came out recently with some CrossFit shoes as well. And then there are weightlifting shoes. These shoes are specifically meant for weightlifting only. Definitely do not do anything more like extra jumping or running or anything in them, because weightlifting shoes are meant to help you get in the best position possible in the bottom of your squat. These shoes are typically very heavy and they're very blocky. So they're really good for driving against the floor and creating that really sturdy foundation when you're lifting. Usually we don't use these with deadlifts unless you're training a clean deadlift. That's going to be used in weightlifting because the higher heel makes it harder to really drive that force against the floor like you would with a deadlift. However, these are really great for getting that bottom position of an overhead squat, a front squat, a back squat. So usually weightlifting shoes have a excessively higher heel. This one I think is almost 3/4 of an inch. This is a TYR, and this is the Innovate shoe. There are a few different brands out there. Nike makes a model called the Romoleos. Adidas also has one as well. But these shoes have a very wide base to them, and they're also elevated. Heel height allows you to achieve that depth in the squat if you're missing ankle mobility. I definitely wouldn't recommend these for all around CrossFit movements, just weightlifting specifically. And often people will get a couple different pairs of shoes. They'll get like a CrossFit shoe to deal with 90% of the things of the workouts that we do here, and then they'll also have a weightlifting shoe for our weightlifting specific days, and then most people usually have like a running shoe for some of the workouts that involve a lot more running, a lot more jumping, and maybe not so much weightlifting in them. I find personally for me, I have about 3 or 4 different pairs of shoes that I rotate between depending on the workout, because each workout's going to have slightly different needs on what I'll need to do in terms of jumping or running or lifting. If I know a workout is running only and pull-ups, I'm going to pick a running shoe, and because I don't need to worry about having that stability to lift weights. If I know that the workout has a lot of wall balls or a lot of weightlifting in it, I'll definitely want a shoe that has a lot more stability. If you're looking for a list of different shoe brands to try, you can always email us or check out our website at crossfitironhaven.com/CrossFit shoes and try out a few different pairs. You can always ask another gym member who's the same shoe size as you to try on their shoes for a moment just to see how they fit and feel, because every shoe is going to fit just a little bit differently.